Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. For my regular viewers, it has been a while since I did a sit down video like this. Don't think they've disappeared from my channel. I've just been enjoying a slightly different sort of voice over message giving, if you like, style of video lately. But this type of video isn't going away, and in fact videos like the one I want to film today suit this style a little bit more. So these videos will still be happening in case you were wondering where they'd gone. Today is the 29th of November and the date is kind of important to this video because today I want to share with you how I keep the Christmas period simple, minimal and stress-free. And you might be thinking, it's the end of November, it is very nearly December, how can I be stress-free? Well, in terms of Christmas, I am. I've not even started decorating yet, and I've got a little pile in front of me of the first few gifts that I'd ordered that arrived in the post this week. And this morning I went out to an actual shop and purchased my first physical Christmas present that I actually had to go out to do. And I know what you might be thinking, that's bonkers. I've been that person who has done their Christmas shopping, started their Christmas shopping in September or October, because it's always a mad rush and you want to get it done. But I'm not about that anymore. I'm not about a stressful Christmas period. I'm also not about dragging the Christmas period out longer than necessary, and I appreciate that might come across as a little bit Scroogey, but in my head, the way I think about it, it's the exact opposite. I want the Christmas period to be special, and when December rolls around, I want to fully immerse myself in that and be surrounded by all the Christmas magic and joy and all of that sort of thing. And for me, that only works well and is only enjoyable if I haven't dragged it out since September and not made it as special because it's been so long. So for me, it's just this 1 month of the year that is about Christmas, and all of this ties into how I keep it simple and minimal and stress-free. Christmas is supposed to be a happy time, a joyous time for peace and gratitude and goodwill and generosity and so many wonderful things. But so many people feel the pressure at Christmas, the rushing around, the stress, the money, the expectation, that it doesn't necessarily make it for an entirely enjoyable experience, which is why I wanted to make this video to come at it from a simplicity angle, a minimal angle, which still means Christmas is full of joy. I still love Christmas as someone who does it more minimal, but it just takes the pressure off a little bit, reduces expectations, and allows you to have the Christmas that you want, that's within your means, where you don't feel the pressures from outside. So let's have a chat just about a few little things that I do that may be slightly different to your average person, or what we do that may be slightly different from your average family, to keep Christmas simple and stress-free. So first off, let's talk about gift giving. Gift giving is brilliant. It's a way that we show the people we care about most that we're thinking about them, that we appreciate them, that we're grateful for something that they've done for us or for just being there in our lives. And it's a lovely, wonderful thing to do. But I think one of the biggest stress factors is how long that list can get to show your appreciation to all the people in your lives, especially if there's a lot of them. And how do you make that list realistic? How do you decide who to put on a list and who not to? And I think we've all been there where we've had to make that decision at some point to say, my budget doesn't stretch this far. For example, when I first took on my job in a management position, I felt like I had to get presents for my entire team, which at the time was very big, and it was just so expensive. And one of the things I quickly realised there is, if you're trying to simplify costs and maybe you do things like, well, I'll just buy them a box of biscuits or some chocolate and then that's only a few pounds, even when you put it together it all adds up. It's actually far more meaningful to just write a card. It's cheaper to buy, but I can write in there a personal message and tell them specifically what they've done in the team that I was thankful for, how they contributed well and that I'm grateful for what they've done, and applaud them for how hard they work. And I actually believe that is more meaningful. And I think as a recipient as well, I would prefer something like that where someone's taken the time to tell me what they think I've done well or how I've helped them, than having another box of biscuits or some more chocolate, or like, if we're being real, something I could just pop down to the shop and get myself. It's not about the money factor here. It's not about that I've been out and spent a bit of my money to get a present. It's that someone's paused and taken the time to tell me why they're grateful or to tell me what they're appreciative of. And a card that might cost a matter of pence is much more meaningful than if they'd gone out and spent a few pounds just to say they've given me something. I know that might sound a little bit ungrateful from the present perspective, but I think the words mean so much more. And I think people can take from that actually, in some cases, a card with a thoughtful message is more than enough and is such a great gift to give someone. So with that in mind, that drastically shortened my gift list, because I then took off colleagues, and then the same started to apply to more distant friends. I've now only got one close friend that I buy a Christmas present for. All of my other friends, it's the same sort of thing, whether they're distant or slightly closer. A nice thought out message and a card to show that you're thinking of them is more than enough. And for most people, what you've got to remember as well is they're surrounded by their own family. Maybe it's a different circumstance when someone isn't surrounded by family. If someone's quite alone at Christmas, then maybe you spend time with them and you go and see them, or you buy a gift. But for most people, they will be surrounded by their own families. And so for me, the realization came that unless it is a friend who is as close to me as family, and I know for some people, friends are like your family, or friends might be your only family, so you'll interpret this slightly differently. If my friends aren't as close as my close family are, then again, a card is more than enough, and as the recipient, I would prefer that. So then that leaves me with just my closest family. And you can see where I'm going with this. As someone with a large family, particularly on one side more than the other, again, cards suffice. But then I start to go a little bit wider, more than just the cards you get in a box. Start to get them their own cards. So for aunts and uncles, get ones that actually say auntie and uncle on and things like that, just so they can tell that you've put a bit of extra thought in for them. You've gone out to the shops, you've chosen them specifically a card just for them, not one that's come out of a box. And again, you can write that message in and give your thanks and show them your love that way. Otherwise, for me, the list would be absolutely endless, and it would be such a stressful time to get through just Christmas shopping. And maybe that is why I used to have to start in September, because the list was so long, and now the list is much shorter. Christmas feels much more manageable and I'm not stressed about it anymore. Which for us leaves the people we buy gifts for, Tom and I, as each other. And at the minute we've not actually talked about gifts for each other. Neither of us particularly know what we want, if you sort of have a list. We've talked about just going away in the new year and having a trip together rather than a physical present. But beyond each other, we've got our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, and then we have one niece, one nephew, and then we have our next door neighbours who help us all year long, and it's lovely to just show them our gratitude at Christmas through that. And as I said, one close friend. So that's not actually 9 people because I said siblings, grandparents, but you can see that list is not long at all. That's literally everyone on my list. Now, I've had this conversation with people about who's on their list, and they say, well, they can't cut a person off their list. That's an awful thing to do. And again, it depends how you look at it. It depends if you think a particular gift means more than a card with a message in, however you view that. But I've spoken to people that are stressed about their list, people with children especially, who are talking about how their child's come home with a list of all their friends that they're going to buy presents for, whether that is just a small token, a selection box or something like that. It really starts to add up. And like I said with colleagues at work, it does feel bad if you're thinking, oh, well, they're not quite making my list. I don't like to think about it like that. They are making my list. I'm getting them a card and I'm going to write them a thoughtful message. It doesn't mean I necessarily need to buy them a gift and sort of second guess what they'd like, because I'm not as close to them as I am my closest family. And so I guess my takeaway from this little bit is, don't feel pressured by the expectation of other people that you have to buy them a gift. A card will suffice, and that can take away not only from the stresses and rushing around and planning of Christmas, but also the financial aspect of Christmas. And it is okay to do that. Then in terms of the actual gifts you get, I always ask my closest family, and because they're my closest family, it doesn't feel awkward asking them. I ask my closest family what do they want for Christmas, because I would rather they tell me, and I would rather I get them something that they actually want, that they'll actually use, that they'll actually enjoy, rather than me sort of second guessing and hoping I know exactly what they want and hoping I get it right. Even these people who I know well, there's still room for me to get that not quite right. And so I will always ask first. Doesn't mean I'll always get an answer. And it doesn't mean that there's not something I've already got my eye on for them that I'm more confident that they'll actually like. That does happen as well. So some people have got a mix of something they've asked for and something I think they'd like. And there's all sorts of things going on there. And I used to be really paranoid that by asking them what they wanted as a gift, that comes across as far less thoughtful, because I'm not sort of sitting and thinking about what I know about them and how well do I know them, and so working out what would be a nice present for them. And in fact, I've had people tell me that as well. But Tom pointed out to me not long ago that I'm just thoughtful in my own way. My thoughtful is creating a spreadsheet, love a spreadsheet, that makes sure that there's a present in there for everyone that I know they're going to love, and that I take the time to plan it that way. And so it's just a different kind of thoughtful, and that's fine. So I would always say, ask people what they want. And I think in my family, there's kind of just an unspoken budget that we kind of all just know works for us and within our means. And I imagine in a lot of families that's quite similar, because you all sort of know what each other does for work. You kind of know, you might not know specifically, but like a rough idea of people's financial situation. Like you can probably tell from the way they live their lives, and you know, your close family, you probably talk about it. But yeah, in our family we definitely have sort of like an unspoken budget. So if I say, what do you want for Christmas? You know, my dad's not going to come back and say, I'll have a Ferrari or I'll have a Satsuma. You know, he knows where the middle ground is for us, and he knows what sort of things are within like a reasonable budget. And it's not like set in stone. It could be a little that way, a little that way, and it doesn't really matter. But there's like a vague idea, so there's no unreasonable requests, I guess. And back to my spreadsheet, once I've got those ideas for presents in there, and that roughly totals up to that budget amount I've got in my head for each person, whether that's a little below or a little above, I'll check it off as like, right, I don't have to think of any more ideas for that person, and I can start the shopping, which is what I've been doing in the last week. Some people I know everything I'm getting for them. Some people it's still blank and I don't know yet because they're still having a think, and that's fine. And that way there's not this constant snowballing of, oh, I'll just add that to it, and I'll just add that to it. I know I'm getting my dad this. I know I'm getting my sister this. And it just works. And it really just reduces that stress. I know what I've got to get. I'll go out and get it. I've got it. And it's that simple. Then we've got the fantastic stuff. Christmas wrapping. I'm very minimal with my Christmas wrapping as well. I love a brown paper wrapping. And in fact, one year I just did the plain brown paper. But the last few years I've started to just do brown paper with a nice, minimal, for the most part, sort of natural coloured pattern on it. Now, these were 89p from Aldi, and I stocked up at the end of last year, so I've got about 8 rolls of this. But that will do me for Christmas. And so, using what we already had from last year, I know some people that won't wrap with the same paper from the year before, because that's what they did the year before. If that's you, that's fine. But for me, I will use up what I've got first as a cost-saving method, and just because this is an aesthetic I like. Cards are another one. And this, I think this is something my mum probably put in me, is that you can't send someone the same card as last year. You can't use one out of the old box. I usually have a few boxes on the go, so I'm not too worried that I'll give someone the same card as last year. But for example, I've got 4 cards left from a previous box. Yes, I will be using those. I will use them up before I go out and buy new cards. So I think we all get to the point where after a few years, if you keep the leftovers, if you like, you kind of end up with 4 from this box and 4 from this box and you have a complete mix. I will be using up all the mixes before I worry about buying new. There's a few reasons for that. 1, to save money. 2, so these don't start to stack up. I do not want to bring in more stuff when I've not got rid of the old stuff. That's the minimalism coming out there. I don't want a cupboard full of wrapping and cards and stuff I've got to store after the season. Granted, I bought these at the end of last season to make sure I was prepared and they were a good price, thinking ahead. And I don't mind buying things like this ahead of time because they're not too big. More on that in a minute, actually. But I don't want to keep storing things year on year on year, so we'll use up what we have first. The same goes for things like bows and tags. I've just got little leftover bits that I will use up first before buying new. Even down to, and my family is very much on board with this, I feel like I've pushed enough with it that they're now on board with it, and that is reusing gift bags. I purposefully don't write the tags. I know many people do, but my family know that if they get a gift bag from me, I won't have written on the tag because then they can reuse it, and if it's someone who would expect their tag to be written, then they can do so. But if the tag's been written on, I'll remove it and just put a new one on. And so I always reuse gift bags, and I'm not ashamed of that one. My gran and I have got one that's been going back and forth between us for years. In fact, I'd be quite shocked if that bag didn't come back my way. I'd sort of be like, where's the traditional gift bag gone? So I'm not worried about reusing gift bags. Of course, if they get absolutely trashed for whatever reason, I'll let it go. But if it's a perfectly functional gift bag, this is one I received last year, I'll reuse it because why not? And then the last thing is, as I've already started to mention, cards. Cards can be so expensive. And like I said, I like to buy boxes of cards for sort of colleagues and friends, and then specific cards for family members like auntie and uncle, actually with auntie and uncle on, and then the same for even the people I buy gifts for. So my parents, I'll always buy one that says mum and dad, gran and granddad, sister and her partner, or sister and family, however you want to do it. And these can start to add up. Some cards are like £6-7, and I would rather people do have a nice one. And so the best time to get your cards, in the sales after Christmas. You can usually get them for about £1 each, if not less. So I buy all my cards for the year, including birthday cards, all in one go. The only ones I can't get are like Mother's Day, Father's Day, because they're not in season. And so unless you're in a card shop that digs some out and puts them out as part of their sale, you might not get those. Or like an event that comes up and I didn't know it was going to happen, so I won't be prepared for that. But I buy all my cards in January in the sales, because it saves so much money, and it also means I've got them for the year. So when someone's birthday rolls around, I don't have to go, oh, did I get them a card? Have I got them a card? Yes, I have. I'm already ready to go. And things like that, this is what I said I'd get back to. I don't mind. I don't mind storing away a few bits of wrapping paper or some leftover cards or my cards for the year. That's not too bad. I'd rather it doesn't stack up, like I've said, but a few bits, because it's cost effective, doesn't bother me. One year I did try and do the buy gifts ahead of time as well. Some in the sales and some as I saw bits that I thought that person had liked throughout the year and just keep hold of them. But what I found it encouraged me to do was buy things in sales where I didn't really have a clear idea of who it would be for. I'd be like, oh, a few people would like that, so I'll keep it and then I'll probably add it to their present. And so it wasn't really as thoughtful as it ended up being, and I'm not even convinced it saved money because I probably bought things thinking it was a good deal without a clear plan for it, and so it probably didn't go the way I thought anyway. And the other thing was storing them. So I can't store presents for an entire year for everybody. It's too much. I don't have the space and I don't like the clutter. So I'm okay with like the wrapping stuff, but not so much the actual presents themselves. But if you are looking for a cost cutting strategy and you've got the space to store them, then it is a good thing to consider shopping in the sales. But I would say just be cautious, have a clear idea of who that specific present is for. And the next biggest expense at Christmas is probably food. And again, I keep this so simple, and that's because I've removed for us the fear of missing out on food, which is a big difficulty for me because I sort of see it as a big celebration. And so one example would be like, I want every single type of dessert, and over Christmas week we'll manage to eat them all. I quickly realised that you end up with so much waste. Eventually you're sick of pudding, and I never thought I'd say that. You get gifted things like biscuits and chocolates, and you might be visiting people. And so it might be that you have different desserts or mains, meat, whatever it is, at different places anyway. And so last year was a bit of a wake-up call for me. We did simple Christmas dinner and we had one pudding, and that was all we had to buy for Christmas food. I don't buy things like chocolate and biscuits in the lead up. I know some people like to have their tin of biscuits out in the week or a tub of chocolates. Lovely. I can remember doing that at my grandparents. But for us, I find that unnecessary. We're out and about so much anyway, and I don't necessarily feel the need to have a tub of chocolates out all the time, especially because I know at Christmas we'll probably get quite a few from other people. So on Christmas Day, or whichever day we end up doing our Christmas Day, because we do visit different family members on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, there's a lot going on. Tom and I, we think this year we'll probably end up doing our Christmas together on the 23rd, but we'll see. So Christmas breakfast, we might have something nice, coffees and maybe croissants or pastries, or just something a bit nicer than your standard before work breakfast. But we won't go too mad because we eat our Christmas meal at lunchtime, so there's no need to really go overboard. We don't have starters with Christmas dinner, and we don't have like all those extra courses. I know some people do a pasta course. Ooh, the sun just came up. I know some people do a pasta course, maybe a fish course. Oh, we wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't get through it. I'd be so full. So we just do a really good Christmas dinner. So we always have turkey as our meat, turkey and stuffing. We like pigs in blankets. We'll do roast potatoes. Now, I came from a household with my parents where you did roast potatoes and mashed potatoes, but Tom and I just do roast. And then we don't have Yorkshire puddings. In my head, that's more of a beef thing, and we have turkey, so we don't do those. We do vegetables, we do carrots, parsnips, Brussels sprouts, sometimes broccoli, but not always, and peas, and then gravy and cranberry sauce. So that's everything I need to get, and all in all, that's not too bad. And we typically do sort of budget supermarket shop, so we've not found that to be really expensive at all. And then we get Christmas pudding. It was very difficult for me to go strictly down the Christmas pudding route because I also like a chocolate log. But it's Christmas pudding, and I know my mum will have a chocolate log, my grandparents will have a chocolate log, and my sister will have a chocolate log. So it's letting go of the fear of missing out, that thinking if I don't have it, I won't have it. It's probably out there somewhere, so I'm not too worried. So Christmas pudding, and then probably custard. Again, I came from a household where we had Christmas pudding and fresh cream, but Tom's a custard person and I'm happy to let that one go. And then drinks, Tom might get a bottle of something, wine, champagne, maybe, but I don't drink alcohol and I just go for a soft drink. So at Christmas, I usually get dandelion and burdock. It gives me a great Christmas vibe, and it's something I try only to drink at Christmas, so it keeps that Christmas vibe for me. And I really like the Fentimans one, which is, you know, more expensive than your supermarket own brand one. But it's Christmas. I think it's about £3 to £4 a bottle, so probably not as much as if you were buying alcohol. And then Christmas Day tea, or evening supper, whatever you like to call it, we will usually have something like cheeses and crackers, finish off any bits that we didn't have at Christmas dinner. And so all in all, it's not massively expensive. We don't go overboard. We don't have loads of options, and there is just the two of us, which I understand if you're in a bigger family that you live with and you're serving for, that's way more expensive. So I do appreciate that if you're the one hosting for lots of people, it's going to be a lot bigger. But you know, there's always the avenue of everybody brings something. That can always help, or people bring their own drinks. That can also help with costs. And then the last thing I want to talk about is decorating. So I know this is a very very touchy point with when you decorate your house. I have always been not until December. But I might put up the tree this weekend because Monday is the 1st of December and it's unlikely I'll have time to do it in the evenings after work. And I like to do it when I've got a fresh day. So tomorrow's looking good for that. So that's technically the 30th of November, but you get what I mean. I know a lot of it depends where you live and what traditions are in the country you live in. I know in the US, some people like to have their tree up before Thanksgiving. Some don't like to have their tree up until after Thanksgiving. And there's a lot to unpick there. For me, as someone who's minimal and does not like clutter, I can't cope with it for too long. And as I've already said, Christmas for me should just be that month, that one time where I'm fully immersed in the magic of Christmas. And so if I've had my tree up all through November as well, and I know some people go even earlier than that, then it just loses that specialness for me because it's like it's there all the time. And one year I did put it up too early. I caved because I wanted to get the Christmas songs on and I wanted the tree up and I wanted to feel like Christmas. I caved. Put it up in, I want to say only like the 3rd week in November. It wasn't like early in November. And I was so sick of it, I took it down on the 27th of December. We got through Christmas, we got through Boxing Day, and I was like, it's too much clutter now, I'm done. And I had to take it down. So for me, it's also from a clutter point of view. I love having the tree up and I do decorate quite minimally anyway, but even then it was like, it was too much. It's been there too long. The magic's worn off now. I want it to go. So I'll put the tree up probably tomorrow. It'll be my thing for all of December and New Year, but then in the days after New Year's Day, somewhere in that 1st week, they'll all come down. And in terms of decorating, I use the same decorations year on year because I think I've got a timeless aesthetic. Green, very natural looking tree. It's not a real tree, it's an artificial one, but it's one that's got those branches that look like real Christmas tree branches. And then all of my decorations are gold and green, and then sort of natural textures. So I've got a few that are wooden and things like that. And for me, that's perfect. It's calm, it's classy, it's warm, still with that element of traditional. It's timeless, which means I can use those decorations over and over again. And if I want to add a little something to it, I don't have to overhaul the whole thing. I know the aesthetic, I know the vibe. So if I see just one little thing I like and I want to treat myself and have a little extra for Christmas, that's fine. I can do that and it doesn't have to be a big expense. Additionally, I don't go overboard with the decorating. For me, the tree is always the feature. Any little sort of added bits, they're just extras. They're not as important to me as long as the tree's there. And I am very simplistic in any sort of little extras I put up. I only decorate the downstairs of the house. Main focus, as I've said, tree in here, potentially a few extras in there. And because Tom and I now live together, we've got his Christmas tree as well. And we're going to put that up in the kitchen. So we'll actually have 2 trees, which is madness. Never thought I'd be the person, but it's quite nice having both. So between those 2 and a few added bits, for me, that's more than enough. So I'm not spending lots of money having to sort of fill the space and feel like there's Christmas cushions everywhere and Christmas bedding upstairs. I don't do anything upstairs. My same bedding will be there all year round. And this is very much a personal preference thing. If Christmas bedding makes you happy, then go for it. If it doesn't add to your stress, if it doesn't add to you in terms of being a financial burden, then go for it. For me, I think the more clutter adds to my stress. It's not simple anymore. The more I have to put away afterwards adds to my stress. The more stuff I physically got to store adds to my stress. So it's just about doing things that make Christmas simple and stress-free for you. Now, just to show you that it's not boring at all, I will be filming, when I put my tree up tomorrow, I will film, if you like, my minimalist Christmas decorating. And I think what you'll find if you watch that video is it doesn't feel stripped back to its bare bones. It doesn't feel like a typical minimalist Christmas where, you know, someone might draw like a black outline of a Christmas tree on their wall, or, you know, like the alternative minimal Christmas trees. It's not like that. It's just a very simple way to bring the Christmas magic in what I feel is still quite a traditional way without overdoing it. So if you'll be interested in seeing that video, do make sure you're subscribed because that will be coming along very shortly. And maybe you're all set up for this year, but if you found this year to be quite stressful, then it's something maybe you could start thinking ahead for next year. If you take away anything from this video, I hope it's that you give yourself the permission to have a more simple and stress-free Christmas if that's what you want, regardless of your circumstances, regardless of whether you just want less running around and less stress, or if you're feeling like everything's so expensive right now and money's tight and you could do with a bit of a break financially from it. You have that permission. Christmas should be about joy, happiness, peace, and spending time with loved ones. It doesn't have to be a burden on you. So please do what you need to do to give yourself the best Christmas for you and your family, and not the best in terms of the most abundant immaterialistic things, but in terms of your well-being, your love for each other, your spending time together, and just making it simple and happy and magical for you. If this is my last video you see before Christmas, do have a wonderful Christmas. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care.